well-being of all the Jews of the world. Everybody should double down, daven at least double as more seriously. Et Sarah Yaakov u'mimena yevashea. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the most fascinating modern in our series that we've had for 10 years now, believe it or not. Halacha in modern times. And since this past week I had a guest from New York, a gentleman that was 57, and I was talking to him. He wants to get married to a woman and she couldn't have kids, and he was talking about surrogacy. And I had to deal with this around 10 years ago in Santa Monica with one of my congregants. I wanted to talk about it. So to give a basic synopsis, there's two types of surrogacy. A surrogate, some women, unfortunately, even when they're young, in their 30s, especially becomes a bigger problem, you know. I just wanted to say a disclaimer. My chavrusa's name is Rabbi Matov, and there's something very important. It says, Davar be'ito matov. In your life, everybody has a window of opportunity that I'm going to say in the conclusion of the class. This is why the Torah says 18-year-old men should get married, and 20 you should run out. And the Chafetz Chaim Paskins, the latest a man should get married, even if he's learning in yeshiva, is 25 or 24. That's how the Chafetz Chaim Paskins in his Sefer Mitzvos HaKatan. When people, chas v'shalom, act foolish and make wrong mistakes and wake up at 50, 60 years old men or women in their late 40s and 50s, and they can't get pregnant, so that's, we're dealing in modern world. I've had to deal with this case, practically speaking, on 3 different occasions. What is surrogacy? It's a fascinating case because it's an nafkamina. Who is this? The mother of the child, right? Because then is she related to her siblings that were born naturally, right? A lot of times, also another thing, practically speaking, a lot of times people get divorced, and then the man is a virgin, so it's his first time. The woman may have had kids, but he wants to have kids. You understand? A lot of times, we also have a lot of times couples where the man is very young and the woman is very old, or vice versa, or it's a second marriage and the person hasn't had kids before, so they want to have kids in the new marriage. So there's something we talked about many years ago, maybe 7 years ago, was IVF. IVF is when outside of the body they mix in the sperm of the man with the egg of a woman, and then they inverto fertilization. They make it fertilize, and then they put it inside the womb of the mother of the child, the wife of the husband. That we already gave a class on. Maybe I'll put the link so you could. But this is going a much step deeper. Question number 1 is, let's say a woman, once a woman turns like around 40, 45, a lot of times their eggs die. I think the statistic, there's a wonderful organization in Israel called Machon Pua, the Pua Institute. I think they recommend, based on all the Gedolim, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu and Rav Ovadia Yosef and all the Gedolim, because of this whole shir we're going to give, that women, if chas v'shalom, since there's a shidduchim crisis, and a lot of times people are getting later and later married, right? Once a woman hits 35 and she's not married, a nice Jewish maidala, she should go do a procedure to freeze her eggs. Because using a non-Jewish egg, right, and surrogacy, we're going to see, is, the poskim call it an abomination, right? This whole shir, as we're going to explain, is if there's a Baal Teshuvah and it was done, what's the law regarding the kid that was formed, right? In the surrogate mother. Surrogate mother basically means, case number 1 is, I dealt with this. Unfortunately, one of my congregants was married and later he became very religious. He ended up getting divorced, but some women, unfortunately, their womb is not strong and they can't carry a baby. So anytime they get, even if they do get pregnant and do IVF, once it hits, the baby gets a little bit big, hits the second trimester, it's a miscarriage. So the question is, modern technology has created a solution called the surrogate mother. Question number one is, let's say you take an egg from a non-Jewish woman. Why is this? Because the woman, the mother of the baby, the potential, right? A man gets married to a nice Jewish woman, right? Mordechai marries Esther. Yaakov marries Leah. Leah is almost 50 years old, and all her eggs are done. So how are they gonna have a baby together? So, this happened in Russia, in Moscow. They send these chuvas to the poskim, and especially people that have money, even though it costs tens of thousands of dollars, people wake up late and they want to have kids. So the question number one is, let's say a non-Jewish egg, you get a donor or somehow you bought it, and you mix it with the sperm of the man, IVF, then you put it in the Jewish mother. Is this kid Jewish? And who's considered the mother? The person that gave the egg. If you go after the egg is from a non-Jewish woman. But if you go after the person that gave birth, it's the wife. And is it Jewish or not? Second case that I dealt with also is that the mother, like I explained, her womb, it always miscarries. It's not a womb. So they take an egg actually from the mother. If the mother is younger, they take the egg from the mother. They do the classical IVF, right? Mix it with the sperm of the husband outside the body. But then they actually go put it. There's a whole industry, believe it or not, in India and Thailand and all around the world. In America, it's like around 80,000. This was 10 years ago. Probably it's gotten much more expensive. In outside America, it's like 40, 50,000. A woman, a non-Jewish woman, is willing to carry, right, the baby for 9 months for a price of 50,000. Now the baby grew and was given birth and came out of the body through a natural birth of a foreign woman, right? A surrogate mother, not the wife. So I want to read to you one of the greatest poskim. The Chazon Ish kind of said that after I pass away in Bnei Brak, you should become the posuk of Bnei Brak. Rav Vosner, Shal Chuvas Shevet HaLevi. He was the Rosh Hashiva of Chachmei Lublin. If you research, as I did a lot of research for this class, the one thing we have to realize from the Gedolim of last generation, Rav Eliyashiv Zatzal, Rav Shlomo Zalman Zatzal, Rav Ovadia Zatzal, and the Shevet HaLevi is the one that actually articulates this the best. He says, absolutely, positively, this shouldn't be done. He actually caused this whole procedure that I explained the last 5 minutes, he calls it an abomination.
Even with the ladies...
Even if the lady's Jewish, even if the mother it's growing in the... And I'll tell you why. Because... So I had to deal with this. There was a couple in my shul, they were about to get divorced, right? So I asked... I have a very good friend, he's the Rosh Hashiva of Neve Yaakov. Him and Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef were chavrusas. His father and Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef and Rabbi Netaneli went to Purat Yosef and Kolel together. Shalita. So his father is his besties with Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, the posek of our generation, the Yalkut Yosef, the chief rabbi of Israel. He told me that even if it means the couple has to get divorced, that much shalom bayit, you should not do this procedure. Don't do it. Why? Because what's the point? Ask my Rebbe, Reb Tzvi Berkowitz, which Rav Ruderman said already 50 some years ago, he could paskin on Dalet Chelkei Shulchan Aruch. We're going to explain why. He said that it shouldn't be done. I asked the chief rabbi of Shiraz also, Rabbi Balanes. He also said that it shouldn't be done. The reason my Rebbe said, Reb Tzvi said, is because what's the point? You want to have kids. This is not considered your kid halachically.
Why not? It's a lady's.
Because I'm going to explain. So let's get into it. Those that want to reference. Let's see. We're going to explain. Just to realize, why is this lechatchila not supposed to be done. No. Even, so Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef told me, answered my question. My best friend went to him, spent an hour with him. He said, even in it's so, the poskim are so against this, right? So this is one case. Usually, the halacha goes very good with technology, you know? But not every new technology thing is supposed to be done. Let's say you could clone rabbis. So are we going to start cloning people? You understand? I'm trying to explain to you. It's a similar sort of idea. Now, for reference, so today's shir, by the way, is on wonderful, wonderful piece, REFUA KEHALACH, chapter 9. He clearly says all poskim of past generation and this generation are vehemently against it. The one that clearly explains why, like I started the shir, is Rav Vosner, the Shevet Alevi, in volume 9, Siman Resh Samech Daled, chapter, his responsa 264. He says this action of doing surrogacy, whether any way you do it, whether the egg is non-Jewish or the egg is Jewish and the surrogate mother is non-Jewish, is absolutely, we should push it away with two hands. And he says why? Because first of all, we know that the major mitochondria and the DNA of the child is in the egg, right? So now, for sure, if the egg is not, the first case I said, right? It's a non-Jewish egg and it grows in a mother. How can you say that kid is Jewish? You understand? And he says, there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Nunchet, it says, even non-Jews, it says, V'davak beishto, right? There are 7 commandments given to Adam and Noach from the beginning. Over there, clearly the Torah mandates that a person, it says in the Torah, this is good for our people that are in Shidduchim, Al ken ya'azov ish aviv ve'imo v'davak beishto, right? It says in the Torah, black and white, your wife and kids take precedence over your parents. And the Torah clearly says they should become one body, which means they should be intimate and create children. So Rav Vosner basically says, here the Torah is giving you, the Torah wants children to be born from a natural relationship of a husband being close to the mother. And he argues, he says, if you want to tell me that an egg could be from your friend's wife, right? And you put it in your wife. So it's possible that you're being close to your wife, but you're not creating a child, right? Because the egg is coming from, and vice versa. So the Torah says, that Hashem, when he explains in the world of the Torah, it's practical. It's what we live by and die by. The Torah wants a marriage, and then after the marriage, the husband and wife become intimate and create a baby. And in the end, he writes that God forbid we should desecrate the holiness of Judaism, and they should rather go pray and have it in a natural way. And he says this is why remember we just learned in Messiah Yesharim, we're a holy nation, and by being a holy nation, a person should have yichus, right? See, the number one reason all the poskim are against it from unanimously, you'll never find any posik that is pro it, is because it's hard to, it says in the Torah, liot lecha lokim lecha uzarecha, a person has to have yichus, right? So if you learn Shulchan Aruch, Even Ezer, it says, who should a person go after to marry? A person that's the Talmud, you should marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, right? Then it says you should marry the daughter of the Gaboyim, because they serve the community, right? There's a whole list over there. But what it basically says is you should also marry somebody from a meyuchastika family, right? This family is known to be Sadiqim and Hasidim and Gedolim, right? But this egg put into a foreign woman, right? This is no yichus. So let's focus on what Rav Eliashiv said. So they asked Rav Eliashiv this, the chief rabbi of Moscow actually asked him this, and the person that wrote this wonderful book, Nishmas Avraham. So Rav Eliashiv actually says that technically speaking, in his mind, he believes the person, which means the egg, since all of the DNA and mitochondria and all the genetics is in the egg, that should determine who the mother is. Right? So therefore, if the egg is Jewish, the child should be Jewish. But he says still, l'chumra, we're not sure. As I was just learning the tshuva of the great Ashkenazi posek of our generation, was the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Edach Reidus of Sternbach, that lives in Harnov. He also says, whether you go with Rav Eliashiv, the Sitz Eliezer, I'm going to read, Rav Shlomo Zalman Arbach, which Rav Ovadia looked up to tremendously. He says, I'm not sure, right? So believe it or not, this week we learned about Moshe Rabbeinu, the most humble of men. You can't just make up stuff in our religion, right? But Rav Eliashiv said, technically speaking, it seems to him, since all the DNA and genetics are in the egg, so as long, even if it's the surrogate is a non-Jew, but he says in the end of the day, he's not sure. And as Rav Shlomo Zalman also says, he says that this is something that is a question mark. So regarding all dinim, you have to go lechumra. So if this kid is born, lechumra, we have to say that, let's say the mother had normal, natural births, right, with other siblings. Yes, he is related to his siblings, so he's not allowed to marry his siblings, right? Right? Because, so, but now there's another opinion from the great Rav of Hadassah Hospital, which was also a friend of Rav Ovadia, the Sitz Eliezer, that wrote, he was one of the biggest experts in medicine and halacha together. He makes another contrary argument. He says we have a concept in Chazal called Uber Yerech Imo. So Uber Yerech Imo means that a child is like a limb of the mother. So according to the Sitz Eliezer, he says that basically since this child is coming out of the womb of the mother, and that's where it's getting its nourishment and its umbilical cord and all this stuff, the child, according to the Sitz Eliezer, would be determined by who the surrogate mother is, not according to the egg. Oh, and I forgot to say that Rav Eliashiv says that in his svara, in his logic, why does he argue that the main thing is the egg? He says we see the body of the woman more of like an incubator, right? Obviously, a kid can't grow in thin air, and technology hasn't come to a place. So we see that here we see a fascinating machlok is how to look at surrogacy. Rav Eliashiv says the main thing is the mother because that has the DNA, that has the mother is determined by who gives the egg because that has all the DNA and all the genetics. The Sitz Eliezer wants to bring a proof to what he says because he says there's Shaus and Chuvas Evan Yakara. He says, what if they would do a womb transfer? A woman, it's a fascinating thing. Let's say a woman, chas v'shalom, says she has a problem that she can't have babies. All her babies become chas v'shalom miscarried. So what do they decide to do? They go to a woman that's healthy. Let's say it was possible to, you know how even nowadays they do heart transplant? A womb transplant. So this womb really belonged to, let's say, woman A, Leah. Now they take the womb, they put it in Rachel. The Shalish Chuvas, Evan Yakara says that he would say, based on the Gemara and Megillah, that obviously the woman that now the womb is in her body, right? The second woman that's actually going to give birth to the child, that's the mother. So that's why he the Sitz Eliezer would say that obviously, since this baby is growing in the womb of the surrogate, we don't care who the egg is. That's not important. Who is it coming out? That's who the mother is. Who also believes this? Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's son-in-law, which is one of a lot of people that nowadays get smicha in Eretz Yisrael, the Kollel people, they get through Rav Zalman Gedolia Nehemiah Goldberg. Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg already for the last 25, 30 years, since his father-in-law, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, passed away, he's been one of the great post-game that, and he says that he wants to also say that the mother is determined not by the egg, but whoever gives birth to the child. He wants to bring from a raya from a Gemara in Yevamos, Daf Mem Zayin Legabi Shnei Achim Tu'umim Shaisa Harasam Shelo B'Kedusha V'Ledam Kedusha. Right? Let's say, Moshe Chaim, you familiar with this sugya of Harasa B'Kedusha V'Ledasa Shelo B'Kedusha? What happens is, let's say a couple have children, okay, and a woman is pregnant. While she's pregnant, she becomes Jewish. So these children were conceived before she was Jewish. But when she gave birth, she was Jewish. So are these kids Jewish or not Jewish? So the Gemara there says, so the Gemara in Yevamah says, Shehem lo choltzim lo yisabim. So let's say one of them dies. Do they do Yibum and Chalitza? The Gemara says no. But it's usher for them to marry each other's wife. So Mikan Ratza Leichiach, from here, Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Nehemiah Zalman Goldberg, Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg wants to pursue Ratza Leichiach Sheim Nikvas B'Zman HaLeida. That how do you define a mother? Whoever gives birth to the child, right? Fascinating machlokes. Does the egg donor define the mother or the person that gives birth to the child? So he says, since these two brothers, right? Remember they were conceived before they were Jewish, right? So while the mother was pregnant, she went to the mikveh and she went to Beis Din, she became Jewish. So why is it usher for them to marry each other's wives? We see from here that they're considered brothers, right? They're twin brothers, by the way. And they are considered brothers. Why? Because when their mother gave birth, what was she? Jewish. So, and he says, we don't care that when she was, right, first became pregnant, her husband was Mr. Christopher Columbus, right? Whatever, wasn't Jewish. The main thing is that while she was pregnant, she gave birth, she gave Jews. So anyways, the bottom line to conclude this shir is that they asked the Shevet HaLevi, which I explained to you is vehemently against it. They said, how about we do something else? Let's say the surrogate, right, mother, whether the egg is Jewish or not Jewish, right? The woman that is holding the baby, if you put her in the mikveh, like the Gemara in Yevamos, is that going to help that the baby would come out Jewish? So I want to read it inside in the Sefer. He said, the Shevet HaLevi says, even according to the Machmirim, right, that say, by the way, I just want to make something clear. Bottom line is that everybody, Rav Sternbach points this out in Shalot Teshuvot V'Hanhagot, Volume 7, Teshuvah 141. That in the end of the day, whatever you follow, this case was not brought down in the Gemara, you understand? Or not brought down even in the Rishonim, right? It's a svara, it's a logic. But you can never be 100% sure. So he says, let's say, we say, L'chumra, according to all opinions, this child, when she turns, if it's a girl, 12, or when it's a boy, 13, you have to tell them, we're not sure you're Jewish because you're a surrogate. Do you want to convert to Judaism? Right? That halacha could be the only for sure way that we're sure this person's a Jew. But let's say you don't want to do that because you don't want to make the kid crazy at his bar mitzvah right before that. He says, Pshisha shalom ma'ila tefillah sa'im. You cannot say, I'm a wise guy. The woman that's pregnant, let's dip her in the mikveh, the surrogate, in India, right? Based on, we'll go there. Because of the Gemara that I mentioned to you before. Because it actually does help, right? In the sugya of harasa shalom kedusha, yeldasa kedusha, right? If a woman converts in the middle, right, of her pregnancy, her kids are Jewish. Here, by putting the kid in the mikveh, we're saying, well, but he says that's not going to help. That's ridiculous. The poskim say, why? He says that's only if the woman converts. So the surrogate mother would have to convert, which is right. That's only the Gemara there in Yevamos says. How does it help that these two brothers, right? The Gemara we just said, the proof of Rav Zalman Nechemia Goldberg helps that these kids are considered Jewish once their mother, because the mother became Jewish. But here, just dipping a kid in a mikveh while she's in the womb of a surrogate is not going to help. So, the bottom line to review all the different cases is that first, there's, like I said before, women, their alarm clock should go on. If chas v'shalom, they're not married by 35 and they want to have kosher children, they should freeze their eggs. That way, right? You with me? That way, if they take a woman, if they freeze the woman's own egg and they do IVF and they put it back in her own body, that's for sure going to be what? Mutar, kosher, because it's her body, it's her egg, right? Her eggs haven't died. Now let's say b'diavad. Let's say it's a case, unfortunately, people think that the rabbis are only for kosher or not kosher. They don't realize the Torah applies for making sure that your money's kosher. Are you allowed to say lashon hara and destroy somebody's reputation? But let's say they went and did it. What's the status of this kid? So according to Rav Elyashiv says it seems that he seems to believe the main thing is the egg. Is the egg Jewish or not? So even according to Rav Elyashiv, that says the main thing is who the egg belongs to, is the egg Jewish or not, is going to determine if the child is Jewish. He says he's not really sure, so the kid still needs to go through conversion. The Tzetz Eliezer and Rav Wozner and Rav Zalman Nechemia, they seem to say that really how the kid is, who's the mother of the kid is not determined about who the egg belongs to, but who gives birth to the kid, right? So according to them, if the surrogate mother is Indian, is this kid your kid? No. It's an Indian kid. It's a non-Jewish kid. Again, he needs to go through Giur. So so he says, according to all those opinions, but it comes out that a fascinating thing. In the first case that we had, where the egg is non-Jewish and the mother's Jewish, right? According to three of the poskim, Rav Wozner, Rav Zalman Nechemia Goldberg, and Rav Elyashiv, the kid would be Jewish, right? Because it came out of the room of a Jew, and the bottom line is, I want to again read from you from the great poskim of our time. He says the same thing. That, and my heart really goes out for people. They wake up late in life and they want to have their kid, but this is highly, highly discouraged to do. He says that in volume 5, Rav Sternbach, when he wants to deal with the question, he says that I'm not sure, this kid may be like a mixed match. He may be like right? Because right, however way you go, either the egg is Jewish, the mother's not Jewish, or either the mother's Jewish or the egg's not Jewish, right? So he says he's like a mixed match. It could be he's mixed with two. And he says anybody that'll tell you nobody's really sure, because it's not brought down in Shas, this case, right? And it's not brought down in the Rishonim. So he says that bottom line is chas v'shalom, this thing should be done, and it brings desecration to the holiness of the Jewish nation. And he says, "Bevadai shegare harbe yoser likach truma b'beitzis Yisraelis tavshin leish makom laomar." He said. So Rav Sternbach, by the way, says, push comes to shove, is it better to take in surrogacy? Is it better to take the egg of a Jewish woman? He says no. He says that's much worse. He says why? He brings a proof. He says why? We know many times if a woman gets divorced, she has to wait 3 months, right? So we should know who the real father is. So he says you already see that Chazal were very worried that we should know who exactly the father of this child is and the mother of it. So we shouldn't have mamzerim and people should have yichus. The kid should have a biological determination of who his parents and grandparents are. So he says, we don't want chas v'shalom want people marrying their sister. He says, because what if the halacha is this donor woman, right? If you take an egg from a Jewish woman that's not the mother, right? And you put it in the mother. What if the halacha is like Rav Eliashiv, that it goes according to, it's really all of it is the DNA of the mother, the egg donor. So really this kid is related, really brothers and sisters, to the stranger woman that donated the egg. So he said, in his opinion, it's better to take an egg from a non-Jewish woman, because at least you're not going to have a shaila of mamzeris and yichus. So he says, he says that already in Shas it says a person should be careful not to do. So bottom line is, we hope that everybody gets married. Don't be machmir. Don't be machmir is don't be makpid. The best thing is, there's a beautiful thing called window of opportunity, davar be'ito matov. People should get married in the right time so not to have this terrible headache. And Hashem should give holy, healthy kids to all couples in a natural way. Amen.